You incompetent fool. As wretched as you are, you have the gut to impregnate my only daughter? No fear or regards at all. Victor stood in the center of the room, shoulders stiff, fingers curled into tight fists at his sides. I'm sorry, Mrs. Alex, but I didn't. Shut the trap. You didn't do what? Mr. Alex thundered, rising from the leather sofa with controlled fury. His tailored suit clung perfectly to his broad frame, authority radiating from him. Is Sandra a baby that can't tell who got her pregnant? What even gave you the gut to counter it? Mr. Alex interrupted Victor immediately. Victor swallowed hard. His throat felt dry, but he forced himself to look up. Sir, I would never. This is why I hate poor people. Mrs. Alex snapped, cutting him off again. She adjusted the silk scarf draped over her shoulders, her perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently against her armrest. They misuse every given opportunity. Because I hired you to become my daughter's tutor, do you think you have a license to get her pregnant? I'm sorry, you have fallen into the wrong trap. Mrs. Alex added, rolling her eyes angrily at Victor. Sandra stood a few steps away, pale and motionless. Her hands trembled slightly at her sides, but she said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on Victor aggressively. Mr. Alex picked up his phone abruptly and dialed a number. His jaw clenched as he waited. Hello, sir. I'm at your service, the voice from the other end of the call said. Immediately it connected. Come with your boys to my house this minute, Mr. Alex ordered angrily before ending the call without another word. The silence that followed was suffocating. The ticking of the antique wall clock grew louder by the second. Sandra, Victor said softly, his voice cracking despite his effort to stay calm. Don't you think it's right to tell everyone the truth? He took a hesitant step forward, eyes locked with hers. Tell them the truth. Sandra's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Her fingers tightened around the fabric of her dress. Shut up, Mr. Alex yelled. Are you trying to coerce her into telling us otherwise? Does she look like she has amnesia? Oh, you got it wrong this time around, Mr. Alex added. Victor shook his head quickly. I'm not coercing anyone. I'm only asking her to speak. Before he could finish, the heavy front door cracked open. Two hefty armed men in uniform entered, their boots thudding against the marble floor. They stood tall and silent, awaiting instructions. Mrs. Alex pointed sharply at Victor as if he were something repulsive. This son of a nobody got my daughter pregnant. I want you to retain him in your custody with hard labor until he decides to tell the truth. Victor's heart pounded violently in his chest. Sir, please, he said, looking at Mr. Alex. You've known me for 2 years. I've done nothing but serve this family with honesty. I swear on my life, I did not touch her. Mr. Alex's eyes darkened. Do you know how reputable this family is? Do you know the weight of what you have done? It should not be heard that the daughter of Mr. Alex of the Alex Group, a leading corporation in the province, is pregnant for a pauper. Gosh, it's so disgusting. Sandra finally took a shaky breath. But she still did not speak. Please take him, Mr. Alex ordered. The uniformed men went closer to Victor, handcuffed him, and took him away. It's been 2 days since the dog was locked up and he has refused to confess. Mrs. Alex started as she walked up to her husband in the living room. And it's shameful going to a hospital to ask for abortion because we're a reputable family in the country. We might even trend on the news for that. So, what do you think we should do? Have him marry our daughter? Oh no, it can't be possible. But that's the only available option. Else we'll have our name published on the internet and possibly would send us to our doom. Mr. Alex picked up his phone, dialed a number, and placed it on his left ear. Bring him back, he ordered and ended the call. After about an hour, the same uniformed men who took Victor away brought him back. He was handcuffed and his body was covered with bruises. He had a blood patch around his eyes which caused him a swollen eye sac. You can go. Mr. Alex instructed the 2 uniformed men who brought Victor home. Mrs. Alex cracked her voice and started, You will have to marry Sandra. Not because you deserve it, but because we can't risk selling our family dignity for a pauper like you. Can he even afford to pay for the dowry? Mr. Alex added in a mockery tune and they both bursted into laughter. Anyway, he would pay with his sweat. We have laid off all the house help in this mansion. You'll take charge of the cooking, cleaning, washing, driving, laundry, and everything else that needs to be done in this house. Is that clear? Victor nodded his head in agreement and pain. And again, she continued, we are keeping this a secret. We don't want anyone to know you're the real husband to Sandra. You are just a live-in son-in-law who has no say. Is that clear? Victor nodded his head again in agreement. Now, get into work, she ordered. Ma, can I at least have some rest today and begin tomorrow? Victor pleaded in pain while touching his scars, hoping to get pity from them. Get into work now. Mrs. Alex screamed at the top of her voice. Victor walked quietly into the laundry room in pain and cried his eyes out. Working as a home tutor to Sandra was some sort of answered prayers because he was paid $50 per month, which he was able to save at least $5 each month for the past 3 months he has been tutoring Sandra. You're still sitting here? He was called back from his thoughts by a harsh voice behind him. Victor jumped up from the chair in fear as his heart sank into his stomach. Get to work now, she ordered. He quickly grabbed the clothes and sank them inside the washing machine and started washing them. The more he stresses, the whiter the sours on his body gets. After the laundry, Victor entered the room to rest a bit and take care of his injuries. I want to believe that there's food at the dining waiting for us, a masculine voice broke the silence. As Victor raised his face, his heart dropped as he saw an angry face staring at him. Get to the kitchen now, the voice ordered. Victor dragged his shirt lackadaisical and moved to the kitchen. While he was making the dish, Sandra walked into the kitchen, rubbing her hands around his biceps. Tutor Victor, hope you're enjoying your stay as my lovely husband, she said mockingly with a sheepish smile on her face. Obviously you should. At least you have a roof over your head, unlike when you sleep in the streets. You're just lucky to come across this family because of your intelligence and my mom's desperation to have me pass my high school exam, she added. Victor kept mute while focused on the dish he was doing. Not talking? Huh? She asked. Gosh. Victor screamed as Sandra rubbed his open wound. Sandra, why are you doing this? I devoted myself to giving you the best you need for your exams. I did research to make sure you're ahead of others. I worked outside my work schedule to see you soar. I was dedicated to have you ace your exams, and this is all you could pay me back with. Oh, shut up. Sandra interrupted, you did all of that, but refused to grant just one request of mine. Request? What request are you talking about? Victor asked in a weak tone. Sandra, can I talk to you? Victor's voice startled her. You obviously have nothing to say, she responded and tried walking out. Sandra, stop. Victor blocked the doorway as his face was tight. Sandra tried to sidestep him, but he caught her arm, his grip firm. Let go, she snapped, pulling away. You're carrying a child. Everyone thinks it's mine. You know it's not. Why are you doing this? Sandra's expression didn't flicker. It doesn't matter who the father is. It matters who gets the blame. You're destroying my life, Victor said, stepping closer. Tell them the truth. Tell them who did this to you. Sandra's eyes widened, but not with shame. She looked past him, spotting someone down the hall. Her demeanor shifted instantly. She dropped her purse, her hands flew to her face, and she let out a sharp, jagged sob. What's happening here? A voice interrupted. Oh, Daddy, help me. My hand is hurting. Please help. Sandra cried as she pretentiously fell on the floor. Please, Victor. Stop, she screamed, her voice echoing against the walls. I said I'd marry you. Just don't kill me. Don't hurt the baby. Victor froze. Footsteps thundered against the floorboards. Mr. Alex and his wife rounded the corner, their faces twisted with rage. You animal. Mr. Alex roared, sprinting toward them. I didn't do anything. Victor shouted, backing away. She's lying. She's screaming for no reason. Mr. Alex didn't stop. He lunged at Victor, slamming him against the wall with such force that the wind left his lungs. His hand tightened around Victor's throat, his knuckles white with pressure. Did you threaten her? Alex spat, his eyes bulging. Did you threaten my daughter and my grandchild? No, Victor choked out, his vision swimming. She's making it up. Mrs. Alex moved in, her palm connecting with Victor's face in a stinging, blistering slap. How dare you? You are a parasite. We gave you a name, a home, a status, and this is how you repay us. Sandra continued to sob, curled into a ball on the floor, shaking violently. He said he'd end it all, she whimpered. He said if I didn't keep the secret, he'd make sure no one would ever know the truth. Mr. Alex tightened his grip on Victor's throat, his face inches from Victor's. I should end you right here. But you're too useful. You're going to suffer for every word you just said. He shoved Victor away, sending him crashing to the floor. Guards, take him out, beat him up. Teach him a lesson, Mr. Alex ordered. The guards dragged Victor out of the house, tortured him as instructed, and left him to his fate. It was a bright Saturday morning. Victor moved quietly around the house, doing his usual chores. Sweeping, cleaning, wiping the tables. No one spoke to him unless it was to give another order. By mid-morning, he had finished almost everything. Laundry was the last task. Victor picked up the basket and slowly walked toward Sandra's room. He knocked lightly. No response. He pushed the door slightly. Then he froze. Sandra was lying on the king-size bed, half-dressed. Victor quickly turned his head away. I'm sorry. I'll come back later. You can come in, Sandra said calmly. Victor hesitated. But, come in and pick out the clothes. Victor lowered his eyes and stepped inside. He walked straight to the wardrobe. His hands moved slowly as he gathered the clothes. Sandra stood up from the bed. Quietly, she walked to the door. Click. The door locked. Victor didn't react. He kept folding the clothes into the basket. Sandra walked closer. Slowly. Her fingers touched his shoulder. Victor stiffened slightly. Her nails brushed against his neck. Then his ear. Then his beard. Sandra, please, what do you want? Victor asked quietly. You're too smart to know what I want, she whispered. Victor stepped away slightly. Please, you have caused me enough harm already. Please let me be. Sandra laughed softly. Victor, you know I love you. Victor looked confused. I've always loved you, she continued. I kept showing you signs, signals, but you kept ignoring me. She moved closer again. I want you, Victor. Victor shook his head slowly. You love me, he said weakly. You lied against me. You let your parents treat me like a criminal. You watched them beat me, insult me. His voice cracked. And you say you love me? Tears slid down his face. Sandra stepped closer. She touched his chest. Stop crying, she said coldly. Victor wiped his face. I have never touched you in my life, he said quietly. And yet, you destroyed me. Sandra's face hardened. You're avoiding me, she said sharply. Something every man wants? To be with the only daughter of the richest man in this province? She laughed. Do you know how many men line up for me? And here I am, giving everything for free to a nobody like you. Victor didn't respond. He only stared at her silently. Sandra's eyes narrowed. Anyway, this is just the beginning of your punishment. Victor slowly lifted the basket. Can I leave now? He asked. Before he could move, Sandra suddenly grabbed his shirt. She pulled him violently. Victor lost his balance. They both fell onto the bed. Then, Sandra screamed. Help! Victor froze. Sandra, help me! Her scream grew louder. Dad, MOM. Victor tried to get up, but she held his shirt tightly. Let go, he whispered desperately. But she screamed even louder. Victor is attacking me. The door burst open. Mr. Alex stormed in. Mrs. Alex followed behind. They stopped when they saw Victor on top of Sandra. Mr. Alex's face turned red instantly. You filthy animal. Victor quickly rolled off the bed. No sir. Mr. Alex grabbed him by the collar and threw him to the floor. You dare touch my daughter again? Victor shook his head. I didn't. Mr. Alex punched him hard. Victor collapsed. Mrs. Alex rushed to Sandra. My baby. Are you all right? Sandra pretended to cry. He tried to force himself on me. Mrs. Alex gasped. You see, I told you this boy is dangerous. Victor struggled to sit up. No, Ma, that's not true. Mr. Alex kicked him in the stomach. Shut up. Victor curled on the floor in pain. You think because we allowed you to stay here you can molest my daughter? Mr. Alex shouted. I didn't touch her, Victor whispered weakly. Sandra pointed at him. He locked the door. Victor's eyes widened. No. Mr. Alex slapped him violently. You locked the door? Victor shook his head. I swear I didn't. Mrs. Alex looked disgusted. This boy has no shame. Sandra wiped fake tears. I told him to stop, but he wouldn't. Mr. Alex grabbed Victor's collar again. You're worse than a dog. Victor's voice trembled. Please, sir. I would never. Mr. Alex punched him again. You already destroyed my daughter's life. And now you want to disgrace her again? Victor said nothing. Sandra sat up slowly on the bed. She looked down at Victor with a faint smile. See, she said softly. This is what happens when you reject me. Victor stared at her in shock. Mrs. Alex turned. What did you say? Sandra quickly changed her tone. I mean, he's been behaving strangely all morning. Mrs. Alex glared at Victor. You shameless creature. Mr. Alex dragged Victor toward the door. You don't deserve to stay inside this house anymore. Victor struggled weakly. Sir, please. Mr. Alex pushed him into the hallway. From today you sleep outside. Mrs. Alex nodded. Yes. In the backyard. Victor looked exhausted. Please. I'll sleep in the storage room. Mr. Alex slapped him again. You don't negotiate here. Mr. Alex ordered the guards to take Victor out and torture him the more. They dragged Victor aggressively and did as was instructed. Because he was beaten up doesn't mean he won't do job as the servant he is. After about an hour of sobbing in the backyard, he decided to go eat at least. He staggered his way into the kitchen to dish out food. And what do you think you're doing? He was startled by the voice of Mrs. Alex. I want to eat, he stammered. You want to eat? In my house? Oh, the effrontery you have to walk into my kitchen to dish food needs to be studied. And again, don't you think you'll purge eating this food? Yes, you haven't eaten a good meal in your entire existence. She chuckled while making mockery at him. Ma, I have not eaten for the past 2 days. Can I at least have a spoon? I am starving. My intestines are shrinking, please. Victor pleaded in a trembling voice as tears attempted rolling his cheeks. You're only permitted to eat the crumbs and leftovers after our meals, is that clear? Victor nodded his head slowly in agreement. Now, get to work. Prepare 10 intercontinental dishes because we'll be having the best ever dinner with the corporate body of the PE group. Make sure the dishes are well prepared because the PE group is the richest company in the world and we'd like to partner with them. Don't let your bad cooking skill cost us this opportunity, you unfortunate pauper, she added. You know, for many years we have worked hard and prayed to have the PE group buy a share in our company, and they have finally decided to grant our request. On that note, make sure you finish making the dish by 2 p.m. because they'll be here by 4 p.m. And once you're done cooking, you'll be leaving for the mall, and you'll remain there till 7 p.m. when they must have left. Don't bother about serving the food. My pretty Sandra would do that. And don't ever show your face around here, is that clear? She asked, widening her eyes. Victor nodded his head slowly in agreement. Now, get to work. Remember you have just less than 2 hours to prepare all the meals. She added and walked out. Immediately she walked out, Victor thanked his stars that he had not washed the dishes he used to serve them lunch. He quickly gathered all the leftovers from the different plates and ate like his life depended on it. Obviously it does. Victor finished the leftover food and jumped into cooking, moving quickly through the tasks. He focused solely on the dishes knowing he had little time before the guests arrived. The clock ticked on and Victor worked hard. The kitchen became a flurry of movement and noise as he prepared the meals. At 3:30 p.m., he was already at the dining table setting the dishes as fast as he could, knowing fully he had a few minutes to vanish. Take this card, go to the mall, buy the items on this list. Remember to remain there till 7 p.m. Leave through the back door and back gate. Don't ever show your face in this premises till it's 7 p.m. Is that clear? Mrs. Alex yelled. Victor nodded his head slightly in agreement, took the card and paper and left immediately. He didn't bother to change his dirty work clothes because he knew that any more time spent and the guests meeting him would be the end of him. He dashed out of the house immediately through the back door as instructed and found his way to the mall. "The meal is so nice," Mr. Wade, the chairman of the PE group, said with excitement all over his face. Obviously, he enjoyed it. "Yeah, it was prepared by our wonderful daughter," Mrs. Alex responded. "Then she must be a good cook," Mr. Wade added while others blushed. "Anyway, I have gone through your business plan. Your company is almost at the verge of collapsing, and we wouldn't want to partner with a company that'll draw us back. But because of the kind gestures you just showed us, especially the wonderful meal, we'll have to go with the file. We'll look into it again, get it signed and sent back to you." Mr. Wade stood up and left, immediately followed by the personal assistant and the troop of guards. They mounted their convoy and drove off. Victor pushed through the glass doors of the mall. His clothes were still stained from the kitchen. Grease on his shirt. A faint smell of pepper and onions trailing him. He didn't care. He just needed to buy the items and disappear. He pulled out the list and the card Mrs. Alex had given him. He moved quietly between the aisles, picking items one by one. Soap. Detergent. Toiletries. He dropped them carefully into the basket. His body still ached from the morning's beating. Every time he bent down to pick something from a lower shelf, his ribs reminded him. He winced quietly and kept moving. He had just reached the toiletries section when a sharp voice cut through the noise. "Excuse me." Victor turned. A mall attendant stood behind him. Young, crisp uniform. A badge that read Daniel. His arms were folded. His eyes moved slowly from Victor's stained shirt down to his worn shoes. "Can I help you?" Victor asked quietly. Daniel's lips curved slightly. "I should be asking you that." Victor blinked. "I'm shopping." "Shopping." Daniel repeated the word like it was a joke. He looked at Victor's basket, then back at his face. "With what exactly?" "You walked in here looking like you crawled out of a gutter." A woman nearby glanced over. Victor straightened up slowly. "I have a card," he said calmly. "I was sent here to buy these items." Daniel scoffed. "Sent. Right." He stepped closer. "People like you come in here all the time pretending. Then we find you stuffing things into your pockets in the next aisle." Victor's jaw tightened. "I haven't touched anything I haven't put in this basket." "Empty your pockets." Victor stared at him. "I beg your pardon?" "I said empty your pockets." Daniel's voice rose slightly. Heads turned. An older woman shopping nearby stopped and watched. A couple paused at the end of the aisle. Victor felt his face grow hot. "I am a customer," he said quietly, trying to keep his voice steady. "I have not stolen anything." "Then you won't mind emptying your pockets," Daniel said with a smirk. Victor slowly reached into his left pocket. He pulled out the shopping list. Then the card. He held them both out. Daniel glanced at the card. He grabbed it from Victor and held it firmly. "This card is a customized card, only for prestigious families. It's obvious you stole it to shop for free with it," he acclaimed. "You're a thief." "Thief! Thief!" Daniel yelled at Victor. "Please, I didn't steal the card. It belongs to the family that sent me here." "Call them if you want," Victor explained, trying to calm Daniel from shouting. "Even in your nearest future, you won't even come across a family that operates with this card. You think it's for people like you? It's obvious you stole the card for shopping because you look hungry." The small crowd echoed with laughter as they enjoyed the scene. Victor lowered his face in shame as most people were already filming him. "Or maybe I should just call security," Daniel said, already reaching for the radio clipped to his belt. "Is there a problem here?" The voice came from behind Victor. Sharp. Female. Controlled. Victor turned slightly. A young woman stood a few feet away. She was dressed in the same mall uniform, but her badge read Customer Service Kristen. She looked at Daniel first, then at Victor. Her eyes were calm, unreadable. Daniel straightened up slightly. "I was handling a situation." "I could hear you handling it from the next section," Kristen said flatly. She walked closer and looked at the basket in Victor's hand. "Sir, are you finding everything okay?" Victor blinked. He hadn't expected that. Yes, he said quietly. "I just need to finish the list." Kristen looked at Daniel. "He's a customer. He doesn't look like." "A customer doesn't need to look a certain way to shop here, Daniel." Her voice didn't rise. but something in it made Daniel go quiet. He glanced around at the small audience that had gathered, uncrossed his arms. "I was just doing my job," he muttered. "Your job is to assist customers, not interrogate them," Kristen said. She grabbed the card from Daniel and handed it to Victor. "I'm sorry about this experience," she added. Daniel gave Victor one last disdainful look and left to attend to another customer. The small crowd dissolved slowly. Victor stood still for a moment. He looked at Kristen. "Thank you," he said. She gave a small nod. "Don't mention it." She glanced at his list briefly. "Do you need help finding anything else?" Victor shook his head slowly. "I think I have gotten almost everything." She nodded again and left to her duty post. "Look at this." Karen screamed. She stood up, her face twisted. "My suit. Do you know how much this cost?" "You filthy, incompetent animal." A small crowd gathered again. Victor wiped his chest with a napkin. "I'm sorry. You were the one walking without looking. Don't you dare talk back to me." Karen shoved him. She grabbed his list from his hand and shredded it. The pieces fluttered to the floor. "Look at you. You look like you just crawled out of a gutter. People like you shouldn't be allowed in a place like this." Victor stared at the torn paper. It was his only list. He was a prisoner in his own life. He didn't say a word. "Say something." Karen stepped into his face. "Are you deaf? Or just stupid?" A voice cut through the noise. "Leave him alone." Kristen stood behind Karen. She wore a store uniform. Her name tag caught the light. She looked at the mess, then at Karen, then at Victor. "Oh, another one," Karen sneered. She turned on Kristen. "This rat bumped into me. He ruined my day. And you? You're just a cashier. Clean this up." "I saw everything," Kristen said. Her voice didn't shake. "You walked into him. You spilled your own coffee. You owe him an apology." Karen laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "An apology? To him? He's a nobody. He probably steals for a living. And you're just as bad. Get out of my face before I call your manager and have you both fired." Karen grabbed her bag and shoved past Kristen, shoulder checking her hard. Kristen stumbled but caught herself on a display rack. Karen turned back one last time. "Trash," she spat at them both. The crowd dispersed, uninterested in the aftermath. Victor stood still. The coffee stain on his chest was dark. "Are you okay?" Kristen asked. Victor looked at her. Her eyes were steady. She didn't look at him with pity. She looked at him like he was a person. "I'm fine," Victor said. "She's a bully," Kristen said. She knelt down and began picking up the scraps of the shredded list. "She does this every time she comes here. She thinks money makes her better than everyone else." "It usually does," Victor said. Kristen stood up. She held out the torn paper. "Not today. Here." Victor took the scraps. "Thank you." "I'm Kristen," she said. "Victor." "You don't belong here, Victor," she said. "I can tell." "I don't belong anywhere," he replied. He turned to go. The errand was ruined. He had no list. He would have to face Mr. Alex without the items. He expected the worst. "Wait," Kristen said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small notepad. She wrote something down and handed it to him. "If you need a real job, somewhere they don't treat you like this, call me." Victor took the paper. He looked at it. He nodded. "Miss," Victor called after her. She stopped, looked back. "I don't know why you helped me today," he said. "But it means more than you think." Something crossed her face. Not pity. Something quieter than that. "Nobody deserves to be treated like that," she said simply. Then she walked away. Victor watched her go for a second. Then he turned back to his basket and moved toward the checkout. He placed the items on the counter quietly. The cashier scanned them without looking up. Victor slid the card through. He waited. The machine beeped. Declined. Victor frowned. "Can you try again?" The cashier sighed and swiped it again. Declined. The cashier looked up now. "It's not going through." Victor's stomach dropped. "There should be funds on it. I was given it specifically for." "Sir, it's declined." The cashier said louder this time. The man in line behind Victor huffed. "Some of us have places to be." Victor turned slightly. The man was well dressed. Watch on his wrist that probably cost more than everything in Victor's life. He looked at Victor the way people look at something that inconveniences them. "Can you step aside if you can't pay?" the man said. "I can pay," Victor said quietly. "The card is just. Clearly it's not working." The man cut him off. "And the rest of us have been standing here watching this little performance long enough." The cashier looked uncomfortable. "Sir, maybe you should." "I'm not leaving without these items," Victor said. His voice was quiet but firm. "I was sent here to buy them. I will sort the card out." The man behind him laughed. Short. Dismissive. "Look at the state of you." He said it almost to himself. "And you're standing here holding up a line." Victor's fists tightened at his sides. Every bruise on his body throbbed. His empty stomach turned. He thought of Mrs. Alex's voice. Crumbs and leftovers. He thought of Sandra's smile as he lay on the floor. He thought of the last few months. Every insult. Every blow. Every morning he woke up and had nothing and no one. He stood there, swallowed it all down, and said nothing, because he had nothing to fight back with. "Not yet. Is everything all right here?" The voice was different this time. Deep. Unhurried. Carrying the kind of weight that didn't need to be announced. The cashier looked past Victor immediately. The man behind Victor turned. Even the small crowd nearby shifted. An older man stood at the edge of the checkout lane. Late 60s. Silver hair, neat and close-cropped. He wore a dark-fitted suit with no tie. Simple. But everything about it was expensive in the way that didn't advertise itself. Two men in black stood slightly behind him. Not security guards. Something else entirely. The kind of men whose job it was to make problems disappear before they became problems. The well-dressed man behind Victor adjusted his collar slightly. "No issue," he said quickly. His tone had changed entirely. The older man didn't look at him. His eyes were on Victor. He stepped forward slowly. His gaze moved over Victor's face. His worn clothes. The bruises are still visible on his neck. He stopped. Something shifted in his expression. He studied Victor the way a person studies something they recognize but can't immediately place. Then his eyes dropped to Victor's hand. Specifically to the small faded scar just below Victor's left thumb. The man went very still. "What is your name?" he asked. His voice was quiet now. Almost careful. Victor frowned slightly. He was ready for another round of humiliation. "Victor," he answered. The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Victor what?" Victor blinked. Nobody ever asked that. Not in years. "Victor." "Reeves," he said slowly. The older man closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something in them had changed entirely. He turned to one of the men behind him. "Pay for everything in that basket." Then he looked at the cashier. "And anything else he needs." The cashier nodded quickly. The well-dressed man behind Victor said nothing. He suddenly found the floor very interesting. The older man looked at Victor again. "Walk with me," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Victor hesitated for just a second. Then something in the man's eyes made him set down the basket and follow. They walked to a quieter section near the far end of the mall. A seating area. Empty. The two men in black positioned themselves at a distance. The older man sat down. He gestured for Victor to sit across from him. Victor sat slowly. The man reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He produced a small envelope, worn at the edges, like it had been carried for a long time. He placed it on the table between them but didn't push it forward yet. "My name is Mr. Wade," he said. Victor's eyes flickered slightly. Wade. The same Mr. Wade who had just had dinner at the Alex house. The same man Mrs. Alex had spent weeks preparing for. Mr. Wade watched Victor's face register this. "You cooked that meal tonight," he said. It wasn't a question. Victor said nothing. Mr. Wade nodded slowly. "I've eaten in 43 countries," he said. "Michelin star restaurants. Private chefs trained in Paris and Tokyo." He paused. "That meal tonight was prepared by someone who has never been to any of those places. And yet," he let the sentence hang. "Talent like that doesn't come from training alone," he said quietly. "It comes from something else." Victor shifted slightly. "Sir, I don't understand why." "Your father's name was Richard Reeves," Mr. Wade said. Victor stopped breathing. The mall noise around them faded completely. Mr. Wade's eyes didn't move from his face. He was my closest friend for 31 years, he continued. We built something together. From nothing. Two young men with an idea and a borrowed office and more stubbornness than sense. Victor's hands were very still on his knees. He died 20 years ago, Mr. Wade said. In a car accident. His wife with him. Victor's throat tightened. I know, he said barely above a whisper. You were 8 years old, Mr. Wade said. Victor nodded once. Mr. Wade finally slid the envelope forward. Before the accident, Richard came to me. He told me he had a feeling. He didn't know what it was. He just said he needed to make sure that if anything happened to him, his son would be taken care of. Mr. Wade's voice was steady, but something underneath it wasn't. He drew up documents. He transferred full ownership of his shares in what was then a small but growing company into a trust. In your name, with me as the custodian until you turned 28 or until I found you. Victor stared at the envelope. His fingers didn't move. What company? He asked. Mr. Wade held his gaze. PE Group. The world tilted. Victor heard the words. He understood them individually, but together they refused to arrange themselves into something real. That's, he started. The largest privately held corporation in this country, Mr. Wade said. And as of your 20th birthday 3 months ago, every share your father left you has matured in full. He paused. Victor, you are the majority shareholder and rightful chairman of PE Group. The silence between them was enormous. Victor looked down at his hands. The same hands that had scrubbed floors this morning. The same hands Mr. Alex had watched bleed without flinching. He looked up. Why didn't you find me earlier? His voice was quiet, but there was something underneath it. Mr. Wade's expression didn't flinch from the weight of the question. I looked, he said. For years. Richard never told anyone you existed outside of the documents. After the accident, the system swallowed you. Orphanage records. Name changes in the system. It took my investigators 7 years to find a consistent trail. He paused. When I eventually tracked you to this province, I found you placed as a home tutor at the Alex residence. Victor's jaw tightened. And then the dinner tonight, Mr. Wade continued. When I walked in and saw the food that had clearly been prepared by someone else entirely, I had my suspicion. He glanced at the scar on Victor's hand. Your father had the exact same scar. Same position. He got it falling off a bicycle at age 9. He told me the story 100 times. Victor looked at his hand. He had carried that scar his entire life and never known what it meant. Mr. Wade pushed the envelope fully toward him. Inside are the original documents your father signed. A summary of the trust. And a letter. He paused. He wrote it for you. In case he was never there to say it himself. Victor looked at the envelope for a long moment. Then he picked it up. His hands weren't steady. He didn't open it. Not here. Not in a mall. Not with 20 years of grief sitting on his chest like a stone. He held it carefully and looked at Mr. Wade. What happens now? He asked. Mr. Wade leaned forward slightly. Now, we begin the process of transferring everything to you. It will take a few weeks. During that time, I'd ask that you say nothing to anyone. He glanced briefly in the direction of the exit. Especially not the Alex family. Victor's eyes darkened slightly. They're expecting you to partner with their company, he said. Mr. Wade's expression was unreadable. Yes, he said simply. They are. Something passed between them without being said. Victor nodded slowly. He stood. Mr. Wade stood with him and extended his hand. Victor shook it. The grip was firm. Your father would have been proud of who you are, Mr. Wade said quietly. Surviving what you have. Still standing. Victor said nothing. He turned and walked back toward the checkout. The items were already bagged and waiting. He picked them up. As he turned toward the exit, his eyes moved briefly across the floor. Kristen was at the customer service desk. She was helping an elderly woman with a return. Patient. Unhurried. She didn't look up. Victor watched her for just a second. Then he walked out into the night. The envelope tucked under his arm. The weight of it heavier than anything he had ever carried. The weeks that followed were the longest of Victor's life. He cooked. He cleaned. He scrubbed and swept and laundered. He absorbed every insult Mrs. Alex threw at him before breakfast. He endured Mr. Alex's cold contempt without a word. He watched Sandra move through the house swollen with a pregnancy she had pinned on him, performing the role of wronged daughter with practiced ease. He did all of it. And he said nothing. But something had changed. Not in his circumstances. In him. Every morning he woke up on the hard floor of the backyard storage room. He thought of the envelope. He had read his father's letter once. Just once. On the night Mr. Wade gave it to him. He had sat under the single backyard bulb with insects circling the light above him and read every word his father had written to a son he feared he might never get to raise. He hadn't cried. He had simply sat there for a long time afterward. Then he had folded the letter carefully, put it back, and decided something without putting it into words. He returned to the mall twice in the weeks that followed. Not for shopping. The first time, he told himself he was returning the card Mrs. Alex had given him that had declined. She had cursed at him for 10 minutes about it before discovering she had blocked it herself by mistake. The second time he had no reason at all. Kristen was at the customer service desk both times. The first time she gave him a polite nod of recognition. The second time she was on a call but glanced over and something in her eyes shifted briefly before she looked away. The third time he came, he didn't pretend to have a reason. She was restocking a display near the entrance when he walked in. She saw him immediately. "You're back," she said. "I am," he said. She looked at him for a moment. "Are you actually shopping, or are you just here?" Victor almost smiled. "Just here." Kristen tilted her head slightly. "That's honest at least." She went back to restocking. Victor stood nearby. "Can I help?" he asked. She paused. Looked at him. "You want to help me restock a display? I spend most of my day doing things significantly less interesting," he said. Something crossed her face. She handed him a stack of items. They worked in silence for a few minutes. It was the most peaceful Victor had felt in months. "You live around here?" Kristen asked without looking at him. "Nearby," he said. Which was technically true. "You don't seem like you're from here originally," she said. "Neither do you," he replied. She paused for just a fraction of a second, then continued stacking. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not." Victor didn't push. They finished the display. Kristen looked at it, then at him. "Thanks," she said. "Anytime," he replied. He turned to leave. "Victor," she said. He stopped. She was looking at him with that same unreadable expression from the first day. "Whatever you're carrying," she said quietly. "It won't always be this heavy." Victor looked at her. She had no idea how true that was. "I know," he said. And for the first time in a very long time, he meant it. 3 weeks later, Mr. Wade called. "It's done," he said simply. Victor was in the backyard when the call came, sitting on an overturned crate, staring at the same wall he had stared at every night for months. "Everything is in place," Mr. Wade continued. "The legal transfer is complete. The board has been briefed. Your office is ready." Victor said nothing for a moment. "The Alex Group file," he said. "The partnership they submitted." Mr. Wade paused. "What about it?" "Decline it," Victor said. "Already done," Mr. Wade replied. Victor stood up slowly from the crate. He looked at the back wall of the house that had swallowed him, broken him down piece by piece and used what was left. "Give me 2 weeks," Victor said. "Take whatever time you need," Mr. Wade replied. Victor ended the call. He stood in the backyard for a long time. Then he went inside, made dinner, set the table, cleaned the kitchen, and said nothing to anyone. He proposed to Kristen on a Thursday evening. It was not elaborate. He had stopped by the mall after a quiet meeting at the PE Group headquarters across town, still adjusting to the leather chair and the floor-to-ceiling windows and the way people suddenly moved around him like gravity had shifted. Kristen was at the end of her shift. She was pulling on her jacket near the staff exit when he walked in. She raised an eyebrow. "We're closed in 10 minutes. "I know," he said. "I'm not here to shop." She studied him. Something was different about him, and she had sensed it building for weeks. He was the same man, but the weight he carried had changed shape. It no longer pressed him down. It sat differently on him now, like something that had been converted into fuel. "Kristen," he said. "Victor," she replied carefully. I have a lot to tell you, he said. Things that will probably sound unbelievable. Things I should have told you sooner but couldn't. He paused. But first I need to ask you something. She waited. I don't have a ring with me, he said. Her expression didn't change. That's a strange way to start a proposal, she said. I know who you are, he said quietly. She went very still. I don't mean your name, he continued. I mean where you came from. What was taken from you? Who took it? The color in her face shifted slightly. Her jaw stayed steady, but her eyes changed. I'm not going to pretend I understand all of it, Victor said. But I know enough to know that the same family that destroyed your place in this world is the same family that tried to destroy mine. The silence between them was enormous. What are you saying? She asked. Her voice was controlled, but barely. I'm saying I want to make it right, he said. For both of us. Together. He held her gaze. Marry me, Kristen. She stared at him for a long time. The mall hummed quietly around them. You don't know everything about me, she said. No, he agreed. But I know enough. And I want to know the rest. Her eyes glistened briefly. She blinked it away. You're serious, she said. I've never been more serious about anything, he replied. Kristen looked at him. Then she exhaled slowly. Okay, she said. Victor looked at her. Okay, he repeated. Yes, she said simply. Okay, yes. They married quietly. Small ceremony. Mr. Wade as witness. No crowd. No announcements. Kristen wore a simple white dress. Victor wore a dark suit that fit like it was made for him. Because it was. Afterward, they sat in a restaurant that overlooked the city. Kristen looked out at the lights below. So, she said, when do we go back? Victor looked at her. 2 weeks, he said. She nodded slowly. And you're sure about this? She asked. Every single part of it, he said. She picked up her glass. Then let's finish what they started, she said quietly. Victor raised his glass. They clinked. The car that pulled up to the Alex residence 2 weeks later was not a car anyone in that household had seen before. Black. Long quiet in the way that expensive things are quiet. 2 more vehicles followed behind it. The gate intercom buzzed. Mr. Alex was in his study when the housekeeper knocked. Sir, there are vehicles outside. 3 of them. They say they have an appointment. Mr. Alex frowned. I have no appointment today. They said to give you this. The housekeeper held out a card. Mr. Alex took it. He looked at it. PE group. His face changed immediately. Let them in, he said, already standing. Let them in right now and tell Mrs. Alex to come downstairs. He straightened his jacket. Finally, he thought. They came to finalize the partnership. He walked briskly to the living room. Mrs. Alex appeared at the top of the stairs moments later, fixing her earrings. Sandra emerged from the hallway, her pregnancy now very visible. They positioned themselves in the living room. Composed. Dignified. The front door opened. 2 men in black entered first and stood to either side. Then Mr. Wade walked in. The Alex family straightened collectively. Then the doorway filled again. A man entered. Tall. Dark-fitted suit. Shoulders back. And beside him, a woman in a deep burgundy dress, her hand resting in the crook of his arm. The Alex family stared. Mr. Alex's smile began to form. Then his eyes focused. And the smile stopped. Mrs. Alex's hand froze at her necklace. Sandra made a sound. Small. Involuntary. Victor stood in the center of the room that had broken him. He looked at each of them slowly. No rage in his face. No trembling. Just a stillness that was more unsettling than fury. Hello, he said quietly. Mr. Alex's mouth opened. Then closed. He looked at Mr. Wade. What is the meaning of this? He managed. Mr. Wade clasped his hands calmly. You requested a partnership with PE Group, he said. Mr. Victor Reeves, our chairman and majority shareholder, is here to respond to that request personally. The room was completely silent. Mrs. Alex looked like the floor had moved beneath her. She stared at Victor, the boy she had fed on leftovers, the boy she had watched bleed in her hallway, the boy she had sent out the back door like kitchen waste, standing in her living room in a suit that cost more than her dining table. Then her eyes moved to the woman at his side, and Mrs. Alex's face went white. Sandra gripped the doorframe. "Kristen," she whispered. Kristen looked at Sandra. At Mrs. Alex. At Mr. Alex. Her expression was composed. Settled. Like someone who had carried a wound for years and finally stopped bleeding. "Hello," she said simply. Mr. Alex turned to his wife. His mouth was moving, but nothing came out. "How?" Mrs. Alex started. "I think," Victor said calmly, pulling out a chair and sitting down like he owned every square inch of the room, which by several legal definitions he now did. "We should talk." Nobody moved. Nobody sat. They just stood there, looking at the boy they had discarded, and the girl they had thrown away, standing together in the wreckage of everything the Alex family had built on other people's suffering. Victor looked at Mr. Alex. "Shall we begin?" he said. Mr. Alex slowly lowered himself into a chair. His face had aged 10 years in the last 60 seconds. Mrs. Alex sat beside him. Her hands were trembling slightly. Sandra hadn't moved from the doorframe. Victor looked at her last. His expression didn't harden. It didn't soften either. He simply looked at her the way you look at something that once had enormous power over you and no longer does. "Sit down, Sandra," he said quietly. She sat. Victor placed a folder on the table. He opened it slowly. "Let's start with the Alex Group," he said. "Specifically, its debt structure. And what happens next?" The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, the reckoning had begun. The folder contained 12 pages. Victor had reviewed every one of them with Mr. Wade's legal team the night before. He didn't need to read them again. He knew every number, every debt, every decision Mr. Alex had made over the past 4 years that had quietly hollowed out the Alex Group from the inside. "Your company owes a combined total of $4.3 million across 3 separate creditors," Victor said. Mr. Alex's jaw tightened. "That is private financial information." "It was," Victor said, "until 2 of those creditors became subsidiaries of PE Group last Monday." The silence that followed was the kind that had weight. Mrs. Alex looked at her husband. Mr. Alex looked at the folder. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Victor leaned back slightly. "I want a few things," he said. "We'll get to all of them." He closed the folder. "But first," he looked at Sandra. "I want the truth." Sandra stiffened. "Victor, I don't think this is the place." "Sandra." His voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. "I have been patient for a very long time. I have absorbed things that would have destroyed most men." He paused. "I am not asking you again." Sandra looked at her mother. Mrs. Alex looked away. Sandra looked at her father. Mr. Alex was staring at the table. She looked at Kristen. Kristen looked back at her steadily. Waiting. Sandra's hands moved to her lap. Her fingers twisted together. "It wasn't Victor," she said. The words came out small, almost inaudible, but everyone in the room heard them. "Speak up," Mr. Wade said from the corner. Sandra swallowed. "It wasn't Victor," she repeated. Louder this time. "Victor never touched me. He was never involved." Mrs. Alex closed her eyes. Mr. Alex did not move. "Then who?" Victor asked. Sandra's chin trembled. Her eyes filled. For the first time since any of this began, the performance fell away completely. What was left underneath wasn't the calculating girl who had watched Victor bleed on her floor. It was someone much younger, much more frightened. "Dad," she said. The word dropped into the room like something broken. Nobody spoke. Victor looked at Mr. Alex. Mr. Alex's face had gone completely still. The kind of still that is not calm. The kind that is collapse held together by sheer will. "Sandra," Mrs. Alex started. "Don't," Sandra said sharply. Tears were running freely now. "Don't tell me to stop. Don't tell me to protect the family name. Don't tell me what it will do to his reputation." Her voice cracked. "You knew. You've always known. And you chose the name." Mrs. Alex said nothing. Sandra looked at Victor. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know that means nothing now. But I am." Victor looked at her for a long moment. He thought about what he wanted to feel in this moment. He had imagined it many times. Rage, triumph, satisfaction. What he actually felt was something quieter. Something closer to grief for the version of himself that had spent months on that backyard floor wondering what he had done to deserve it. "I know," he said simply. He looked at Mr. Alex. Mr. Alex finally raised his eyes. They were red at the edges. Whether from shame or rage or fear, it was impossible to tell. "You have two choices," Victor said. Mr. Alex said nothing. "The first," Victor continued, "is that I take everything. The debt gets called in immediately. The Alex Group is liquidated. The properties against which you secured those loans are seized. You lose the company, the house, and what's left of the name." He paused. "And I hand what Sandra just said to the authorities along with the documentation my team has already prepared." The room was absolutely still. "The second choice," Victor said. Mr. Alex looked up slightly. "You sign over 40% of whatever remains of the Alex Group to a trust one will establish in Sandra's name. Not yours. Not your wife's. Sandra's. So that the child she's carrying has something that cannot be touched by either of you." Victor's voice didn't waver. "You issue a formal public statement clearing my name entirely. Every record, every rumor, every whispered version of what you told people about me. Gone." He held Mr. Alex's gaze. "And you never contact me, my wife, or anyone connected to me again." Mr. Alex stared at him. "And if I choose the first option," he said. His voice was rough. "Then I choose it for you," Victor said simply. The clock on the wall ticked. Mr. Alex looked at his wife. Mrs. Alex looked like a woman watching everything she had built turn to smoke in front of her. She gave the smallest nod. Mr. Alex looked back at Victor. "Where do I sign?" he said. The documents took 40 minutes. Mr. Wade's legal team had prepared everything in advance. When it was done, Victor stood. He buttoned his jacket. Kristen rose beside him. They stood together in that room for just a moment longer. Victor looked around at the walls. The marble floors, the antique clock, the leather sofa where Mr. Alex had once made a phone call that sent him away in handcuffs. He had spent months inside these walls with nothing. He left with everything. He turned toward the door. "Victor." He stopped. It was Kristen who had spoken. But she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Mrs. Alex. Mrs. Alex met her eyes. Whatever she saw there made her look away first. "You threw me out of this house when I was 6 years old," Kristen said quietly. "You told my father I was a burden, that I reminded him of his first wife, that I was in the way of the family you were building." She paused. "I want you to know that I don't hate you." Mrs. Alex blinked. "I grew up without a father because of choices you made," Kristen continued. "I worked at a customer service desk and ate one meal a day for 2 years. I wore the same 2 pairs of shoes for 3 years. Her voice didn't break. "And I am standing here in this house that was supposed to be mine, next to the man I married, watching everything you built on other people's pain come apart in one afternoon. Oh, almighty Mrs. Alex, you think I don't know you orchestrated the death of my mom? She died while birthing me, but I have the footage of how you sneaked into the hospital ward and unplugged the oxygen. She didn't stop you from marrying my dad. You could actually execute your plans without taking her life." At this point, tears were attempting to drop her cheeks. I know how much you suffered at the hands of your ex-husband and how much you protect your daughter, but my mom went through a worse situation and all you could think of was to take her life so as to marry her husband. You didn't end at that. You collected everything she worked for, every property that was signed in my name, and everything that belonged to us. This time, tears were flowing down her cheeks like a river. "I lived at the orphanage home for 20 years of my life. I managed to get a scholarship for a better education. You went to the school and asked them to terminate my scholarship. You kept on monitoring my life to be sure I never succeeded in whatever I do." She turned to Mr. Alex, and here is a man who should have been a father, a protector, and a priest over me, blindly dancing to your tones. She looked at Mrs. Alex for a moment longer and wiped her tears. "I don't hate you," she repeated. "I just want you to understand that none of this had to happen. All of this suffering, every single piece of it, it started with the choices people in this room made." She glanced briefly at Mr. Alex. "And it ended the same way." She turned toward the door. Victor walked out beside her. The 2 men in black followed. Mr. Wade paused at the door. He looked back at Mr. Alex one last time. "For what it's worth," he said, "Richard Reeves was 10 times the man you are. And his son is twice that." He walked out. The front door closed behind them. Outside, the afternoon light hit the driveway. Victor stood beside the car for a moment. The air felt different out here. He couldn't explain it. It wasn't just the space. It was the absence of something. Something he had been carrying so long he had forgotten the feeling of putting it down. Kristen stood beside him. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. He looked at her. She looked at him. Two people who had been picked up by the same storm from completely different directions, and somehow landed in the same place. "Ready?" she said. Victor exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he said. He opened the car door for her. She got in. He stood there for just one more second. He looked back at the house, at the gate, at the walls that had held him. Then he got in the car. The driver pulled away. The Alex residence shrank in the rear window, then disappeared. Kristen rested her head lightly against his shoulder. Victor looked out at the city opening up in front of them. Somewhere across town, his office waited. His father's name was on the building. His name too now. He thought of a boy of 8 years old who had lost everything in a single night and spent 20 years not knowing what had been waiting for him all along. He thought of his father's letter. He had memorized the last line. "Whatever they take from you, Victor, make sure they never take who you are. That belongs to you alone. And I promise you, son, it will be enough." He looked at the city, at the life ahead of it, at the woman beside him who had survived her own version of the same war. His father was right. It was enough. It was more than enough.